So Elana Wolff is a Toronto-based writer of poetry and creative nonfiction, editor, translator, and designer and facilitator of social art courses. Her work has appeared widely in Canadian and international publications and has garnered awards. Elena's sixth solo collection of poems, Swoon, is newly in print and will launch virtually with Guernica Editions in June. And there were some links too in the bio. So everybody, please welcome Elana Wolff.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, and thank you for affording us this platform. Of course, hi, Katie. Of course, we'd all rather be there in person, but at least this way we get to bring together people who otherwise wouldn't be able to come. And it also saves me a drive up the 400 and drive back on the 400 in the cold and the rain. So thank you for that. I'm going to read from the new collection. Here it is, Swoon. Yes, which, as Aaron said in his introduction, is going to be launched virtually during the first week of June. So this is a bit of a preview here. I'm going to read 6 poems, and all of the poems in Swoon coalesce around the motif of the swoon. Swoon in the actual biographical sense, and also swoon in a more metaphorical sense, the falling and rising and heavy and light, even awakening aspects of the swoon as they're filtered through encounter and relationship and the art world and the natural world and dream as well. And we will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the reading. You will have, and I will ask maybe later when Katie goes. So please feel free to jot down words or phrases or anything that comes up for you while I'm reading. And you can ask questions, and hopefully I will also be able to come up with answers. So I'm going to start with the first poem in the collection, and it's titled "The Months of Flooding." More rain fell than could drain. Rain filled up the riverbed, and people brought their vessels out to ride the waters coursing like a mum in trouble south. Rain came through the cumulus like mantic movie music, amplified by being from the hub. Lord, we use this very word and heard it used by others. Lord, the inundation and the floods. Rain came down, the river rose, people brought their vessels out and coursed the waters, teeming like a very troubled mum. Holding to the hull and gunwales, head below the bow. At odds with sun, the promise, and the covenant of what? Pigeons wheeled against their way, and gulls, the occasional raven. She'll hold a little son to her chest. Both will sweetly cleave once the floods recede. Rays break through the gray. She used to call those shafts of sunlight heaven stretching down. Rainbows were her majesty, his physic. And always, when they came, they made her glint. So that's the first poem, and I'm going to skip ahead to a poem titled Hyoid. That's H-Y-O-I-D. So hyoid is this very singular bone that's located right here in the throat. It's a free floating bone. It's the only free floating bone in the system. It's U-shaped and it has horns. So it's got lesser horns and it's got greater horns. And it has a vital role in swallowing and also in speech. And on the darker side, the hyoid bone is injured in 1/3 of all homicides by strangulation. No strangulation in this poem, but thought I would throw that in there. Hyoid. A clutch of shrubs and stand of trees on the knoll on the way to the grave. The boy and girl entrusted to us the moment we brought them in. We get our moral feeling first from color. Let it not be read, I haven't loved enough. I'm trying. Coreopsis, say what you will, your other side is violet. This, the law of complements that binds us like a thigh. I stand alone, lay stones on the gravestone, clover and a note. One can stun from nothing, make the sun appear impromptu. We do this with the word. And if ink is insufficient, there is speech to turn to, birds. A chaffinch crosses the path and turns to crow. Black wings flapping echo in my hyoid. Bone at the base of the tongue, unlike any other. Little wish that breaks away from pre-articulation. It's the story of the hyoid to enable complex human speech. It's deft manipulations. You touched my horseshoe you by stealth and bent the lesser horns. Okay, the next piece is also a body part poem. It's titled Lunula, and the lunula is that little moon-shaped thing at the base of the fingernail. Most people have them, I think, on all fingernails. You can check yours. Mine are only on the thumbs. I see some people are checking. Yeah, my lunula are only on my thumbs. Okay, and I should say maybe this is also a poem about my daughter, for my daughter. Lunula. Quickened, we await the baby, calculate the time to talk. Your time, my time, different cities, oceans in between. Branches tangle at the hedgerow, crows and sparrows come and go. Come back. The longest while I didn't see the crack in the kitchen window, simply didn't see it. Then I did, like Archimedes in the bath. Last we sat together, I observed how light your fingernails, the crescent in the nail bed, pale as whey. I dreamt a boy in January, perfect earthling, swaddled blue, and thought of C.D. Wright, who passed a week before the dream. If blue weren't blue, she wrote, how would love be love? And what about the moon of fixed proximity and rhythm? If the moon weren't Luna, how would we be? You asked me not so long ago if I'd seen the full blue moon. No, I said at first, and then recanted. And this is actually the title poem, Swoon, although it's not a poem that actually features the swoon itself, the actual swoon. So it's still metaphorical. Swoon. This is one of the strong man days. Red rust on the rock, a voice pumped up on sun, then rain, reliable rain, and snow on the steady peaks. Swallows swooping out of the blue and dipping, diving their hearts out. Man, oh man, this may be a weekday. Raven holds the swing vote and you know he's in with his beak. I am in my black suit, also swaying sillily from the middle. Nothing is as lovable as the middle from the edge. Something weighty drops, is falling, something from the inner ledge. The sound of it confounding down, the old thought wanting, round, and here I go again, again. Oh, purify me, circumcise this mind. This is going to be the second last piece. It's titled Sock Doll. You know, those dolls that we used to make from socks. So it's one of those really simple stuffed dolls. And I have a reference in this poem to 433, which is the title of a musical composition by the late American composer John Cage, who was an experimentalist. And 433 was a particularly controversial piece because it required the musicians to sit on the stage with their instruments and play nothing for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. So I have to say I attended a performance of 433, the year of John Cage's death. And it was a surreal experience because what you hear is everybody's anxiety at sitting in silence. Okay, so this is titled Sock Doll. He came at a time of hullabaloo in a box with a party pom-pom, flecked with yellow, red, and blue. She took him from the table, brought him to her room, even though she'd outgrown dolls and poppets. Placed him on the pillow slip, slipped him under cover. Floppy body, woolly head, thin, simplistic limbs. Of what there'd be an end to took its time. Winter hung on glacial as a catatonic gaze. The corkscrew hazel froze and broke. Surly purple sunset stained the sheepskin throw rug carmine. She lay on the skin to join the bloody color. Sock doll on the counterpane, watching in his non-ironic way. Legs akimbo, arms as she had locked them at his neck. Sometime in the summer, when blues and yellows still were clinging thirstily to green, she got her chalk and gouache out and made the poppet's portrait, using her left, non-dominant hand, timing herself to John Cage's 433. Later, in a finer light, she noticed Sock Doll winking in the scribble. Okay, and I'm going to close with a piece titled White Rock, which is the name of a city, it's a border city south of Vancouver, where my mother lives now, since she moved back to Canada from the States several years ago, pre-Trump. And this poem is also from my mom. White Rock. The part committed to rising strove from the sofa, sitting on it, winter in our midst. Harder in these cold days after solstice. The year, my mother said, is like the ticking. Sadly, it goes on till you have to wind it. Oh, the clock. The ticking slowly talking down. The clock becomes more obvious the less it matches time. We bought that clock when I worked for Dr. Volpe, my mother continued. Such a wise and wonderful man. I'll always remember his little tip. Nil illegitimi carborundum. Don't let the bastards get you down, she laughed. We sat in the living room, rooted to our seats. Semiamu Bay, just over our shoulders in the cold. The white rock somewhere on the shore, painted to keep the namesake. It's politic to think of rocks as fixed. The gonging of the clock is so reverberant, my mother said. It lingers without any strength or strain. Okay, thank you. And I think I'm going to stop with those 6 pieces. Can we get back on air? I'm still muted.
Well done.
Oh, thanks. Great. Nice to, hear to, oh yeah, that was really, that was also bizarre. It was like being in a capsule, you know, it was really super silent, which was good, I guess, but also strange.
It's really wonderful to hear you, Elana.
Thank you, whoever said that.
That's Jamie. Jamie said
Oh,
that.
hi, Jamie. I see no face.
No, I decided not. I decided to just be the name.
Okay, I see the name. Wow. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for reading Hyoid, which was published in the Maynard, right?
Yes, it was. Thanks to you. Yeah. It's a bit of a dark poem, but I thought, why not? I wanted to give you a bit of a spread to show you something of what's in the collection. And I think I'm under 20 minutes. Am I under?
Yep.
Or did you count the kerfuffle at the beginning?
No, we didn't count that.
Okay. So if anybody has any comments or questions.
Yeah, I do.
Take some. Merle?
I wrote down the phrase mantic music, but I didn't think through, I didn't get the title of the poem.
Okay, so it's the first poem. Yeah, so it's the first poem here. I put it there. Can you see it? The months of flooding. The months of flood. And I realize as I'm saying it that the months is a very difficult thing to bring out of one's mouth. But anyway, it refers to actual flooding, months of them, and also a different kind of flooding. So that mantic music, mantic movie music is that kind of music from above. Yeah.
I loved all your poems as always, Elana, and I particularly enjoyed Sock Doll. It's so visual, it's so tactile. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you very much. And it has the falling, but it has at the end the rising. So it's got both aspects of the metaphorical swoon in it. Thank you, Merle. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Yeah, I also in the months of flooding, sorry, I for some reason I can't start my video again. It won't start. I loved there was an internal rhyme of rain and
for
rain.
a second? I can't see
Deepam, that's Deepam.
And I can't seem to start my video again. My name's Deepam.
Okay, hi Deepam. I don't see you on my screen. Oh, I see you now. Okay, I guess I don't have everybody on the screen, and some of you are still muted. So those of you who are muted, you can, I think, unmute at your end.
Yeah, you have to move the mouse down to the lower left, and then you can mute or unmute. You can also stop or start your video.
Okay, let me see if I can unmute other people. I can't though, right? Everybody has to unmute at their end.
Yeah, we just sort of let people do that on their own.
Okay.
People choose not to.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah.
Okay, sorry, Deepam, please.
Yeah, there was some lovely lines in there that went by so quickly. There were a few times when mum was mentioned, I think 3 times, and hold a little son to her chest, and I was very curious. Yeah, mum and son, those 2 words were really prominent for me. That she was at odds with the son, and then holds a little son to her chest. And I was curious about whether that was playing with son and son, or how is it spelled in the poem?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's an actual sun that in the poem is spelled S-O-N, and of course there's the S-U-N, and there's the little mum in that poem as well, you know, as in mother. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
yeah, you
so
picked
the
up on
whole
it.
poem had this lovely maternal feel to it while talking about the natural world, and I just thought that was lovely.
Thank you,
And
thank
the
you.
referring to, she used to call the shafts of sun, what was it? She used to call the shafts of sun, what was that?
Like heaven stretching down. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, beautiful.
So yeah, it's a poem that comes from a bit of a dark place, but it has the hope in it as well. Yeah,
It does.
yeah. It sort of circles around that darkness, and yeah, I start with that poem with the sun and the sun shafts, and I didn't read the final poem, but the final poem also comes back to that. So there's really a cycling through the swoon, which yeah, you can't tell from this reading, but it's in there.
Lovely.
Okay, I don't know. I think I might have used up my 20 minutes by now. Any one final comment or anything?
I love the language in Lanula about the fingernail moon and swoon and crescent nail bed and crack in the kitchen window. There was so much lunar language and moon imagery and crescents. I just wanted to say I really appreciated that.
Thank you.
I'd like to read it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that poem, I just maybe show you what it looks like. Maybe I'll show it to you here. It's so different hearing when you don't get to see, because the visual, yeah, you probably can't see it there anyway. Yeah, there's no punctuation in this poem, actually. It's just slashes. So the slashes are kind of like the caesuras. They're kind of like the musical notation in it. So it works a lot through music, but yeah, so I read it that way, but those are also the signals for the reader when they don't have me reading for them. Thank you. So yeah, I think that's probably it.
Okay, well, thank you, Elena.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah.
Are you ready to read, Kate?
I'm ready.
Okay. So Kate Marshall Flaherty's sixth book of poetry, Radiant, launched in 2019 with Inanna Press. She was shortlisted for ARC's Poem of the Year 2019 and for Exile's Gwendolyn McEwen Poetry Prize 2018. She inaugurated Toronto's Poetry Union in 2018 and Poetry and Healing for Sick Kids in 2020, which due to COVID-19 is now a month of poetry, meditations, and to soothing music and writing prompts at poets.ca. She guides the Still Point writing workshops online now on Zoom. You can check out her poetry workshops and poetry and healing at her website, katemarshallflaherty.ca/KMF. Everyone, please welcome Kate Marshall Flaherty.
Thank you. Well, it's like there's 15 of us here. That's lovely. And I love the energy of human beings in a room, but I have to say there's something beautiful about the Hollywood squares of all your faces. So this is great. So even though my latest book, Radiant, I realize things are backwards on, isn't that funny? It's like Jabberwocky, but anyway, oh, maybe you can see it frontwards. Anyway, I'm not going to read from my latest book because I'm sick of it. So I'm going to read all my brand new hot off the press COVID poems. I hope you don't mind. Some of them are hopeful and some of them barely even touch the theme, but they're just everything I've been writing in the last few weeks. So I thought I'd just go for it. Anyway, thank you, Colleen and Erin and Word Up and everybody, and Elana. It's so lovely to, she and I were going to do the road trip together, eh? We were going to drive and,
Yes.
oh well. So maybe that'll happen in the future, but this is lovely. So thank you one and all. And thank you friends that showed up. So I have 8 poems and I timed it, it's 15 minutes. So I'll just jump right in. The first one is fresh off the press. It's called Being Unmade. And Alan will recognize this because we just, we had a prompt at the Still Point about dreams. And so the beginning of this was a dream. Being unmade. I am here again in this strange place, dream within dream, spooling like a film reel in slow motion. Years ago, my dad rented Paddle to the Sea on an old metal projector wheel for my basement birthday with the whole class. We watched the start of Bugs and a bullseye countdown with bits of hair magnified on the screen. An old man carved a small spruce boat by the fire in his lonely cabin. I think a boy went to visit him, but that is not what I remember well. It was the ending, when my father played the film backwards in a strange, slow language like marbles in the mouth, where a boy was spitting blueberries back onto the bush, and the uncarved wood curls leapt out of the fire back onto the fattening boat, and the waterfall flowed back up in its own watery lace to the lip. Then our clapping was real, and the final celluloid strip circle slapped, and the spin came to a stop. And I was head girl for a moment, my tall, scary dad, the hero for a flash, in the backwards reverse of expectation from the kids, who asked for it and to start again. And here I am once more, dreaming I'm in pioneer days by the fire, back in the wood shop, watching myself become the boat, being unmade, ship unwhittled into woodblock, in this haunting time, waking like paddling back to the sea. And this next one, I won't even introduce it. And the danger ended. We came out of our hiding places, the undershrub, old leaning fence, Mrs. Leibowitz's shed, or the tire mound in the tangled ravine. And Mooney called, "Ollie, Ollie, income free" again, so the youngest Dumphy would hear, wriggle out of the crack, smirking, and we'd wipe the weeds from our pants and faces, sighing a deep heave that we were not it. My brother had been tagged, and it was his turn to hide his eyes and count and hunt and search for the most exposed, one who couldn't hide fast enough or find a place just right for a small body. And the danger spiked again, electric, in the spine hair of fear that we might be caught, be tagged, be the next it. And some of us grabbed a younger child by the hand to stuff them safe into a leaf pile. And some of us kicked the crab ladder off the wall so no one could follow. Some just hid, some ran, one cried. And all of us in the game, and all of us in the game and not, wondering why the chill of the chase night after night. So this next one's from the CB2 48-hour poetry contest. So 7 of the 10 words were vinegar, lethargy, eggplant, bootlegging. That was okay, paperback. And then there were these wild words, I can't even pronounce it, periostronic, which means pertaining to pigeons, and octothorpe, which is that little, hashtag sign. So you had 48 hours to cram these 10 words into the poem. So this one's called Plastron, and it starts with an epigram. What you counted and carefully saved, by Naomi Shihab Nye. I stopped counting the black bean tins and jars of rice, tried to stack the freezer in lines of meat, veg, meals already made. I gloated like a hoarder, bootlegging toilet paper, our bin of onions and eggplant, enough for an entire team after a game no longer played. Felt a little sick too at the stack of sanitizer cloths we had scored way back before the rush. The old muscle of soda and vinegar now pressed into baking lethargy and salad dressings. No one counted on this change, that swooping in, peristronic. None of us noticed our neighbor's eyes until we had to meet them to avoid being less than 6 feet apart. The new octothorpe every day for social distancing. What an oxymoron. I saw online demonstrations of experts bore us on how to wash hands. A surgeon said, leave the groceries in the garage. I don't have one. I thought, how middle class the ads, safe in a carapace of capitalism. What of the women without running water? What of the suddenly jobless who can't stack up tins, keep a TP stockpile or paperback library? What of that old parable about the farmer who built his bigger storehouses, stockpiled all his wheat, and in the middle of the night lost his life? Blue flame. A blue flame is a fire burning at its brightest, complete combustion of gas. I don't want to dream the dream I just had. My nearly 90-year-old dad gasping for breath, alone, no window or even screen possible between us, hands praying in distant rooms. I wouldn't wish weeping anesthetists in hospital corridors, the horror of choosing who lives, who goes home to drown. I crave communion now that we touch screens. I want to light a solitary candle in a crowd. Notice the blue flame. The greater the gusts, the hotter the oxygen. In this corona burning through time, one thing becomes clear, the surety of light flickering wildly in each of us. And I have to say, I wrote this poem and had this dream when my parents were in a retirement home that had a COVID outbreak. So I can say happily, blessedly, both my parents, we got them out and there was a place we could bring them to. But I dedicate this poem and the light within us for the 19 families whose parents tested positive. One Corona, a partially found poem. COVID-19 must leave something to the imagination. I think of coins passing hands, and suddenly, on a dime, new rules, profits, and currencies. I wipe the mirror with bleach, picturing essentials. What are they now? Not what they were an hour ago or a week. Eventually, the hall of horrors and panic sales must give way to a settling. Earth is taking a breath. Each check, each bill, each two-sided coin, now all objects of meditation, a new currency, carrying potential to spread all over the world, go viral, prayers on paper money, loving kindness on coins. So this next one's just about blueberries. It's funny the things that become a big deal sometimes, and the little rituals we create. So this is, I have a special compartment for everything in the fridge. So we eat what's getting old first and we save the other stuff, and somebody threw the blueberries in the wrong crisper. So it's called Meditation on Blueberries. This morning, the last of them hidden in a clear box, tucked by happenstance into the wrong crisper, leaned into each other behind the broccoli, a sort of shipwrecked blue family. They must have wakened one morning to a shocking change of life, everything turned upside down. And here they are on their heads, having waited, I suppose, for me to find them, save them from being plastic boxed with only each other and all new vegetables and fresh crisper rules. I am no medic. Some of them have shriveled, others a bit fuzzed. I try to rescue the robust young ones, gently touching the elderly fruit, not quite turned, still flavorful. They seem to sigh when I choose them, past the prime ones. It is they I place gingerly in my beveled glass bowl, sprinkling water to revive them like a blessing, the gift of the overripe. And just two more poems. This one's called Bridge Pose, March 2020. One of the practices that keeps me sane is trying to do a little bit of yoga each day. And I don't know if all of you know the story that was big in my childhood of the billy goat's gruff. Hands up if you know that. Who's that trip trapping over my brain? Okay, good. So you'll get the reference. Okay. Bridge Pose, March 2020. What am I bridging? I asked the water. I'm strong and flexible, but at times in the middle of my arch, I fear the weight will buckle. My flexion will fall into rapids. I imagine bridge over troubled water, the billy goat gruff suspension, Golden Gate overpass. Each rises and lifts over something dangerous. Is that it? We rise and trip-trap over fear itself. We close our eyes. My heels dig into mat, shoulders spread to ground, wing blades widening. An ache in my heart tickles, sharp as beard bristles. I have been a goat, too gruff in the face of coronavirus, too sure-footed and silly, convinced it was all over there on the other side. I breathe into bridge pose, imagining as I trip-trap blindfolded over Troll's rickety span, hoping to cross raging waters just 1 foot at a time. And this final one, I had two. Which one am I gonna read? I don't know. Maybe I'll read this meditation on soft-boiled egg. Again, the little treasures that we focus on in these times. Meditation on a soft-boiled egg. Perfect morn, waking to ceramic coddling a warm brown orb. Sun slanting through harsh March glass on a wooden tray of tea, toast, and egg, soft-boiled in its skin-colored shell. My son, the scientist, asserts it's a 4-minute egg, an equation solved, a square root with no radical. There is something complete, breakfast in an little oval encasement. I tap the crown and scoop out the sun-warm yolk, deliciously dip my crumbly toast into soft, salt-loving warmth, grind coarse black pepper. My third-born stands, beaming. I hum in the sun, queen bee, cupping egg in hands like a prayer. So that's it. Thank you for your rapt attention. I didn't hear any coffee grinders or anything.
So does anyone have any questions for Kate?
I wanted to ask you, Kate, about your 48-hour poem, what that felt like. It's a beautiful piece.
Thank you. Well, it's funny, I find, maybe because I love prompted writing, I had read Naomi Shihab Nine's poem, and that line had stuck with me. And so when I scrolled down to look at the 10 words, they don't seem at all connected. But I just started writing, and it's funny how they slot into place when you sort of have the energy of something you already want to write. So I guess I would say the process is have a little energy inside, and then the words aren't so daunting. They seem to find their place. A few of them I just shoehorn in, but some of them, like Salt and Soda or certain things just worked. And some of them I'm not sure if I hadn't told you what they were. But I find it's a really interesting process to do that blending of an energy you have and then the kind of constraints of the 10 words. And it's 48 hours means you've got to really think fast.
It really works.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's lovely.
So I have a comment that's connected to a question. I enjoyed your first poem very much. I love the wending way of it. And I noticed the paddle to the sea and the spruce boat and the film going backwards and the pioneering days and everything. And it reminded me a lot of Pauline Johnson, even her paddle song. And I'm wondering if it was informed at all by Pauline Johnson.
You know, I wish I could say yes, but no. I'll have to look up Pauline Johnson and read more.
You must, because there's such a resonance. Yeah,
I'm going to write that down. All right.
Yeah.
There must be a sister out there, so I will write her name down and thank you.
Yeah, specifically her paddle song.
Yeah, I will look that one up for sure. So
Yeah,
another show of hands. How many of you remember Paddle to the Sea, National Film Board? Not so many. Oh, just a few. Oh dear. Well, look it up if it's still around. I think it was done in, I don't know what, 1971.
Do you have any other questions for Kate?
I just have a comment. I think it was the third poem. I was really struck by the image of the character being a bootlegger during the time of COVID, and stocking toilet paper and eggplants. I love that combination. And also in that same poem, never noticed the neighbor's eyes until we had to avoid them. I always thought that was very potent. It was beautiful, Katie.
Thank you. And I do think that it's funny. I've seen people, the same people walk their dog or walking the same route and they're barely paying attention. And it is interesting that we're really, connecting with each other in order to keep the distance. So I thought there's an interesting, contrast as well. Thank you. Yeah.
I really liked your poem about the hide and seek. And I'm curious as to where that poem started from. Like, where did you begin?
You know, again, I think that I was reading a poem, I believe it was by Jericho Brown, and the line in the poem was, "And the danger ended." And it brought
sound is all of a sudden gone. Yeah, lost the sound.
Oh.
Yeah, you'll have to repeat your answer. We lost you for a second.
Is it back? Maybe if I go.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, maybe sometimes if I get rid of my video, you can hear me. So I was saying I read a poem by Jericho Brown, and the line in it was, "And the danger ended." And I just remember as a child actually being really stressed out when we were playing Buck Buck, or, you know, the wall game or chase, or all these games, hide and seek. I remember being really stressed out because I'm the eldest of all my siblings, and I would be so worried that the little kids, you know, wouldn't have a place to hide or they'd get lost. So I never enjoyed those games. So that was the impetus of this. And then I thought of it in relation to COVID and the idea of being it and not knowing, you know, of course, that whole metaphor. But I think that was the impetus for it.
Oh, it was great. It had all sorts of lovely imagery in there. Made me feel like I was playing hide and seek again.
I like the ollie ollie outs in free.
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but a couple of things came to mind to me as you were reading through.
Sound is not good.
One on the passing of somebody on the street and the eye contact that was mentioned. And one of the things in our neighborhood, and it just, when you read that, it just brought it right back to me, is that now when we pass someone and we move over to the road off the sidewalk, or they do that, we actually make eye contact, wave and say hi, something we never did when we walked right past them. And, we're seeing more of our neighbors now than we did when we didn't have to keep a distance. So that struck me. The other one that struck me from a personal point was the birthday one with the film. And it brought back images of the old reels, and one of the films that came back from a friend who had borrowed my father's camera. And when it was put up, he actually filmed over the unprocessed film, and my birthday party was going over Niagara Falls. And the other point that really brought back memory was when you're talking about the hair flicking or whatever. And every commercial old film had that, and you got to wonder if they didn't put it in on purpose, just to catch their attention, because that struck me, because yeah, it was always there. So anyway,
It was like a trademark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed those. They brought back some real images. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you.